Hello everyone, today I am looking at Okami. This game was really hyped up back in the day as not as exactly a Zelda killer, but oh, this is a lot like Zelda, you would probably like this, but it's different in a lot of ways. So I remember just the history of me trying to beat Okami and play it, and I just didn't really connect with this game. I didn't really get into it. I appreciate a lot of things about it. I love, the Japanese folklore and the aesthetic design, and the characters are pretty fun. And Okami, controlling Okami herself is really, really cool. But I just felt that the game honestly was too long. But the basic setup is there's the goddess Amaterasu who has, I believe, reincarnated in the form of a wolf with a sun disk on her back, and her name is Okami. And she is joined by Isun, who is this little kind of painter termite guy who lives, with the wolf. And it's funny that this game came out also around the same time of Twilight Princess, so I don't know if wolves were just really big at this time. And so basically, you have been reincarnated onto the earth, essentially, to go and fight evil, essentially. And I believe it's Orochi, the eight-headed dragon that is threatening creation. And so you have to go into these villages and help these people and fight and attack and bring nature back into balance. Something that I do love about Okami that I love seeing in every other game is that nature responds to your very presence. So something Okami will do is, when you dash and you go into full sprint, you leave a trail of flowers behind you. Every time you beat a boss, it's the whole section becomes rejuvenated. There's this miasma and stuff around the world, and once you defeat the boss of that temple or that area, then that entire place is cleansed and it becomes the trees return to normal again. There's also this one mini game where if you see a cherry blossom that's barren, you do this one stroke with your brush and you bring it back into being. I actually originally played Okami on the Wii, so in the Wii version you actually have to make the motion with the Wiimote, which actually was kind of cool. A little bit frustrating during boss battles when you had to do very specific movements, but it was always a 1 in 20th time or chance where it did the wrong input that I intended. What's also cool is how the combat system works. Usually you'll see these giant floating markers in the overworld, and essentially that is how you start an enemy encounter. And once you start that enemy encounter, you're kind of warped, almost like a JRPG, into this encounter world where you have a force field around you and a little arena that you can't leave, and you just need to defeat the enemy. And so Okami's attacks are pretty cool. She'll use her sun disk to basically attack, and if you click as soon as it connects, it can start a combo. And it actually worked pretty well on the Wii, honestly. I was expecting something like that to not be as responsive, but the waggling actually was pretty good in this game, honestly. In terms of all the waggling attacks, I think Twilight Princess in this one did it pretty decently. I'd still prefer just to press a button though, honestly. Again, what also made Okami very interesting is its aesthetic style of this low cell shaded design. It makes it look very classical, and again just makes it stand out in general. This was a time that I associate games with getting very experimental and trying different things. And this is one of the games that definitely stands out. Okami's sun disk back thing is a very unique design and just really cool to look at in general. You unlock 2 other sun disks throughout the course of the game, I believe, one of them having a giant sword attached to it. That's all yellow and electric. It's really cool, actually, the kinds of different attacks you can get in this game. Again, this game is based all around Japanese folklore, so you're finding stuff like tengus and ninjas and that kind of thing. And you also have to find Susanoo. That's a big part of the job or the main quest. You start off in this small village in the mountains, and oh, by the way, and when you're in this small village, the soundtrack, the music is so iconic, and it almost is this building soundtrack, which is very unusual. Usually songs just kind of loop, and this one does, but it feels like it's building up to something. It has this really good vibe to it. I guess in general, another thing that Okami in overall just does very well is music. A lot of the themes in this game and a lot of the music in general is just very, very impressive, and I love it. I guess one issue I had is that, again, I like the graphical style and everything, and I guess maybe the only issue I really had with it is that a lot of the dungeons that you would go to, I mean, I was going into this expecting Zelda, so you have like a certain area and, the civilians and the population in there, and then you have the temple associated with that area. And the problem that I was really encountering is that all the dungeons really felt the same. None of them felt special or unique, and a lot of them were very forgettable. A lot of the bosses were very forgettable. Yeah, that's just like one thing I have to complain about. The other cool thing, though, is, using the brushstroke. There's a lot of different things you can unlock. For example, there are different spiritual animals that you can get that allow you to get new brushstrokes and new techniques, some of them being things like bombs, or being able to cut an enemy in half, or being able to, again, revive a tree. And so some of them are pacifist and some of them are more aggressive and combat focused. And again, I just love the vibe and feeling of returning the nature of the world to its pristine state, which is something also you see in Zelda a lot, especially in the second half of the games. When you beat the dungeon, the temple, you restore nature back to its balance and try to heal the world. And that's something I've always appreciated and didn't realize until I played this game why I like it. Oh, of course, there's the very, fun character Waka, who is this traveling swordsman slash flautist. And so he plays this, Japanese flute, and there's actually quite a few boss fights with him, but he also becomes your ally throughout the story. And his theme is really cool, and he's this cool, sexy character. And I'm pretty sure he speaks in like French or something for some reason, which I think is pretty funny. It's also, speaking of humor, there are some, different animals will give you different brushstrokes from the celestial calendar. There's some very funny ones like the monkeys who screw up their introduction, like opening animation. Just a lot of very funny, cool things like that in this game. And again, kind of is the same idea as Zelda. You get a brushstroke, you get a new power, you can use that on the final boss. I just wish the areas were more memorable. They're just kind of very low aesthetic or low poly or whatever, which is kind of the point of the game, but it just made for some places to be very forgettable, unfortunately. Again, I love the combat aesthetic, the design, everything about it. It just looks really cool. Also, if you end up using all of your ink, you will lose your sun disc abilities, and basically you'll be kind of quote-unquote naked and unable to continue the fight until you get your powers back, which is just over time. Also, every battle rank you, so depending on the damage you took and the time it takes to complete, it'll also give you extra yen, and you can use that to buy certain items throughout the game. And Susanoo, throughout most of the game, another character, is kind of this, swordsman or practicing swordsman who thinks he's really great, but he's actually still learning how to be a hero, how to be an adventurer, how to, help people, and he's totally incompetent. And so you come along and make him, do his work for him and make him look really good, which is very funny. However, he does eventually serve an actual purpose later in the game, along with Isun. And they actually become very important main characters that are able to essentially, together save the world. Again, another thing that I just really didn't enjoy about Okami, and obviously maybe I'm like biased or something or whatever, but one thing I really did not like is after doing about 3 dungeons or so, you end up going to fight Orochi, the 8-headed dragon. And by that point, you've probably put in 30 to 40 hours into this game, or at least that's what it felt like. And when I finally fought Orochi and beat him, I thought, okay, that's the end of the game. And it turns out, no, that's the halfway point. And so for I think more than a year, I didn't touch Okami because I simply did not want to keep playing this game. I was like, okay, it's kind of like Zelda, but not really. It has all this cool folklore, but I'm really not enjoying myself. And so for a while I just put it off until eventually I thought, well, it's one of these classic games, I might as well finish it. And again, this Orochi battle feels so final, it feels so massive, you use all your skills whenever, and I literally thought it was the end of the game. It's no, you have to do 40 more hours or something. So it was kind of a slog, is my really big complaint with Okami, honestly. Again, I really like the metaphor or the idea that the celestial brush is being held by the gods and we are the authors of the story, so thus we are writing it, which again is really cool. I think there is one late game moment though that actually does make up for it. I would say that the last chapter of this game is actually really, really cool. Mainly because you have this whole moment where essentially you get on top of this like arc or something and it flies into the sky, and apparently it's based on this old Japanese myth about people flying to the moon in this boat or something, and also I think rabbits being on the moon. And so you have this really cool sequence where you revive this ancient ship or boat, and it sails all the way into space, and that's where you have the final fight with Neo Orochi or whatever the hell it is. And in this manner, you basically finish the game. And the final boss is also really intense as well. It's this point where essentially, you kind of, Issen basically is able to power up and become his true form, and you're able to take on the final boss. And there's this whole thing where everyone, prays for Okami and like a kind of a spirit bomb moment. And the designs and aesthetics and graphics in that final section are actually really, really cool and impressive. But again, just getting there, I feel like a lot of these things are just like side quests where they had like almost a bunch of checkboxes about what they had to do for like, oh, we have to do the underwater level with the princess, of course. We need to do the miasma level where they're stuck in the mountains, of course, because that was part of this story and this legend. And so a lot of it all together is just frankly just way too much. There are some fun mini games I just remembered where you have to do a bunch of digging or whatever, kind of like Dig Dug almost. Again, there's just a lot of cool little mini games. I just wish the game was just shorter, honestly. But yeah, Okami is one of those games that are very much revered or, held dear by some very passionate people. So it's kind of surprising we didn't get a sequel. Technically there was a sequel on DS called Okami Den, where you play as a little puppy Okami, which I think is very appropriate considering, when you look at the DS and you look at, the GameCube, it feels like a puppy version of the GameCube. And so I think that was kind of on point. I never played it though, because again, after I beat this game, I was happy that it had a satisfying ending and it did kind of, it was cool, but at the same token, I feel it really didn't make up for the really long length of the game with kind of the reusing of frankly a lot of content. Regardless, I still like Okami. It's still overall kind of a good experience to me. And again, it does kind of have that Zelda vibe of side quests and stuff like that. But yeah, that's pretty much all I can say about Okami. Really cool game. I hope it's to see maybe not a sequel, but at least something in the same style someday. I don't know why it was, but my favorite thing was doing the cherry trees. I don't know why. It was so like fulfilling to just breathe nature back into the world and also get little points and rewards for it. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys later.